It took me so long to get here to the place where I'm at right now. I wrote my book, Unrequited a Love She Couldn't Keep. As y'all can see, this is my proof. I published this book in February of 2026, and we are now in May. And I've been wanting to do a YouTube video for a while now, but I just didn't feel like it was perfect timing, right? Perfect timing. We always want perfect timing. We want the perfect situation. We want perfect timing. We want the perfect person. We want to be the perfect person. We always want perfect, right? But what I've learned through my journey and every day when I wake up is that perfection doesn't exist. You know, you have to meet people where they are. You have to acknowledge where you are, and you get your strength by accepting things and moving forward. So I'm on vacation, and I decided to take a little time before I went outside and did some things to actually put together my thoughts on my book that I released. So I wrote this book. I started writing this book in 2016 because I was at a job that I really did not like. And I use it as an outlet, a creative outlet to ease my stress. I've always been a creative person. I love writing poems. I'm a hopeless romantic, and I hate using that term now because through this book, you'll see just how hopeless I felt when it came to romance. But I'm a hopeless romantic, and so I started writing this book in 2016, and life and my journey took me so many places. And to get to the point where I wanted to finalize and complete this book, it took a specific situation with a specific person to push me past my comfort zone for me to complete this book. So in my lifetime, of course, it's loosely based off of my life. And in this book, Maya, in her lifetime, she fell in love at first sight 3 times, 2 of which she was a teenager, which kind of shaped, like molded the way she looks at love and the way she perceived love. And that feeling that she got inside is kind of like that I know how it feels because it felt like this kind of feeling. And though it's a beautiful thing and not everyone gets to experience that on a day-to-day basis, is also detrimental. That feeling, I feel like stifled me in so many romantic relationships when I didn't have it and when I did. So 2 of those times I was a teenager, my first love, and then a couple years later when I met another guy and I had those same overwhelming feelings of, this is nice. I've fallen in love with this person. Just engaging with this person causes a visceral reaction. Everything tingles, butterflies in my stomach, like sweating, like all of the above, right? And so when I went through my divorce in 2021, I came into my love life and looked at my love life in such an optimistic way. I was like, yes, I'm ready, because I spent 8 years with someone who I genuinely loved, and we were friends for years, you know, before we got together. And so our relationship was more of a friendship with a little love and less being in love and having those overwhelming feelings of being loved. So I would say, because I went through the experience where, you know, I didn't feel those overwhelming feelings for so long, when I did feel those feelings again, it was amazingly jolting. It was euphoric. It was a lot. So in this book, it talks about Maya and how she went through her divorce and how she was going through dealing with her kids being grown and in college and working a director job and coming home and sitting around all day, you know, on the weekends, and not much to do, not many places to go, and just being in severe depression, you know, going through the emotions of having to start over and having to try to navigate these dating waters. And as y'all know, these dating waters are murky, really murky. So in her time, of course, she got online, did her little YouTube podcasting, and of course, I guess her algorithm brought her a whole bunch of post-pandemic, or still in the pandemic, podcasters, YouTubers, and all this stuff. So she, of course, came across a guy who, gave motivational talks, was a presence and influencer on Instagram and other social media platforms. And of course, because he said things that resonated with her, she followed. And so, he started offering coaching classes, and she was like, oh, let me do that, because of her boredom and her solace. And she was quite melancholy during that time. She decided to, and I'm speaking about it like in the book because I don't want nobody to sue me. You feel me? You feel me? And so she was kind of melancholy. So she's like, it was her daughter Aria's first year away, away from home in another state for college. And so she decided to book a session on Aria's birthday. And, just to help her with the feelings of not being able to be the hero in her grown kids' lives, right? We all go through those changes, developmental stages. And what I've learned is those developmental stages don't stop when we're kids. We go through it from birth till death. And so she books a session, not looking for anything other than coaching, life coaching, and guidance. And when she does, the first moment she gets on screen, it was that instant spark. And the hardest part about that situation with her life coach was that she had never seen a grown man look at her like that. In her teenage years, she experienced it. She experienced a lot of people because of her light and her bubbly energy and, just who she is as a person. She lights up rooms. And so she's used to having people look at her in awe and in shock sometimes. But to have a man in adulthood look at her like he was overly consumed with her aura and sometimes couldn't even formulate a sentence, it drew her in even more. And the sad part about, I will say chapter 10, if you read chapter 10 of my book, is how that overwhelming feeling of having that safe space turned into such a disheartening experience. And this person claimed to be a safe space and great at communicating and vulnerability and openness. And when she finally got the courage to say, hey, I like you, just hey, I like you, that was it. Hey, I like you. It caused a chain reaction that was detrimental to her and took years. I'll say this. She's still healing. She's still healing because we know that healing doesn't stop, right? And that experience, because she was on such a high when she got out of her marriage and was so optimistic about love, because when you spend years in a marriage that you feel is a loveless marriage, you come with optimism and hope, and you kind of feel like things are going to be great, right? Because you've released that strong burden. And in the book, she was in a marriage where she had to be a caregiver to her ex-husband's disabled mom the entire relationship. So she had a lot on her plate. And she's always been that caregiver person, which is why she became a nurse. And so she also hasn't had many safe spaces. Gun violence, drive-by shootings since she was 10. Not a really cohesive family. A father that abandoned her and did many other things. And so when she's already guarded enough, so when she put down her guard with this person and they mishandled her in that situation, it became a lot for her to cope with. And if you can put yourself in someone's shoes where we all have things that we guard with our heart, we all have, you know, traumas and situations that cause us to act a certain way or react a certain way, and sometimes be emotional, i.e. tears, you know. And so when you feel like you have a safe space and you feel open enough to say how you feel, you know, my delusional optimism or her delusional optimism made her feel like, you know, it would be a great experience. And the way that person, the comfortability in which that person made her feel, he made her feel like it was a safe space. And even if he didn't feel that way, which rejection, listen, I grew up, born and raised in South Philly. If anybody can take rejection, it's me. I think the situation in the issue in this book, you see how he ain't gonna to me. I think the issue in this book, and if you read it, you'll understand, is that silence and blocking someone out when it took them so much to be able to be open, courageous, fearlessness, and then you run and not have that engaging conversation that, you know, she was used to having, you know, it was detrimental. And honestly, when someone has gone through abandonment and rejection, those type of triggers, which I'm sure now, you know, that he had his own triggers. I know that he has his own triggers. I know that he probably dealt with abandonment and rejection. I could go out on a limb and say that, but I feel like that's a limb that's kind of sturdy. And I felt like he had his own abandonment and rejection issues himself. And maybe he ran because he thought I would abandon and reject him. Who knows, right? It's only my interpretation through this book. And so, yeah. When I told him how I felt, he blocked me. And it was like a ripple effect, because right before then, Maya had lost her job for the first time. Maya has been in her career over 20 years, never had a write-up, never had disciplinary action. And in the last 4 years, it has been a little chaotic. You know, companies closing down, all kinds of stuff, departments closing, you know, the kind of world we're living in right now. And so that was her first layoff experience. The company was closing that portion of their business, and he knew that. And she told him. And so he knew. And so within 30 days of that happening, you know, maybe she felt like she wanted something good because of the heartbreak she felt with losing a job for the first time ever in, at that time, 16 years. And so 16 years in healthcare. And so I guess she thought it was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, you know, but instead it was more darkness. And when you're just hanging on sometimes and you're just barely hanging on, you know, I reckon the reason why she has an autoimmune disease now is because she's had to be in survival mode her entire life, you know? And so when you're just barely hanging on, you feel like you're doing everything by yourself. And then, you know, you see a light at the end of the tunnel, not thinking that I didn't want anyone to save me. I never did. You know, even in my marriage, I was the breadwinner, you know, Maya was the breadwinner. And so, you know, I didn't want anyone to save me. I wanted someone to meet me where I was. And I still am willing to do that with whoever, you know, I engage with romantically, but he didn't do that. And it was a ripple effect. It was lost job. It was that abandonment and rejection. And what I have learned with triggers is until you truly heal them, situations will continue to trigger you into a downward spiral. You have to acknowledge, okay, I'm dealing with abandonment and rejection here. And instead of going back into why didn't my dad love me? Why didn't my dad show up for me? Why didn't this person do this? Why didn't they do that? You have to look at how can I understand my role in this situation, right? And it's easier said than done because even now, I've been holding in my tears all week, you know, because I had been, my daughter was graduating college and having family, but even now, I still struggle with that type of abandonment and rejection. And it's hard because I still feel guarded. Like I want to be open and I want to date so bad because it's been a lonely 5 years. Would I want to be back in my marriage? HE double hockey sticks, no. And did I think it would be this hard? Probably not. But the good thing is before I got into the relationship with my ex-husband, I was single for 5 years then, right? So I've done it before. The hard part is when I did it before, I wasn't doing it heartbroken, And so I had that situation happen, and then my dad died. So it was like a double whammy, right? That situation triggered my abandonment and rejection, and then my dad died, and it was final for me because it was a situation that I will never be able to make right. And because of the situation with my dad and what he did, I hadn't talked to my dad 4 years before he passed away. I had to identify his body. I had to do all that by myself. And it was a lot for me. And it's still a lot for me because I'm one of those people that like to solve problems. That's why I am as good as I am in what I do. And when you can't find a solution to a problem for me, it drives me crazy. And to be able to just engage and talk it through, I feel like would have helped me heal so much, but the inability to do that, it creeps up on me sometimes. And I'll be honest to say, right after that happened, I took a travel job, and I feel like me traveling has kind of helped and hurt me at the same time because it's a good distraction. But as you can see, well, this is my personal travel vacation, but as you can see, being alone in hotel rooms and stuff like that with a lot of time to think, it is hard. And I remember right after my dad passed, being in a hotel in Boca Raton, and I'll be honest to say, the thought did cross my mind, like what would happen if I just, jumped off the side of this building. And I realized in that moment how painful everything that I had experienced had been. Now, I can't blame one person for that, right? The only person I can really blame for that is me, because it's how I handle things and how I process things. But to get zero kindness from someone who you thought would at least be kind is also a very hurtful, painful experience. And having the doors slammed in your face every day, that's how you feel, like it's been slammed in your face every day, is a hurtful experience. And I want to get past it, but it's hard because situations in the past, right? To feel those overwhelming emotions for someone, and it feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I feel blessed to be able to have had it 3 times in my life, But I find it quite ironic that the 3 times I had it, I never was intimate with any of those 3 people. And I am perplexed because I realize that I've always chosen safe relationships, or because of the intensity of the connections of those 3 connections, we could never get on the same page. It was supercharged. And as I sit in this hotel room today, I was on my flight this morning and I said, maybe I'm looking at it wrong. And I know I shouldn't say this, but I really did feel that way when I was on that plane thinking. And I had to reread. I was rereading my book, and that's why I felt like I needed to sit down, because it was in my spirit. And I said, maybe I was looking at this person as a blessing, and maybe they were a curse. Because, you know, sometimes we look at these type of situations and we feel like, wow, like, this is for me. But if it's so hard, like, and now looking at it, it's like the only thing that was good about it was the experience when it was good. Everything after has been horrible. Has been horrible. And so I said, I know I shouldn't call anybody a curse, because no one's really a curse, but I was just being diabolical, you know, in my thoughts, because I was a little frustrated, especially with reading chapter 10. And so I said, you know, while they're thinking good, better, and best, I'm thinking that this was my person. You know what I mean? And I don't think it was my person, y'all. And so I opened up and signed back into my dating app. And I didn't do it out of hurt or frustration. I did it out of... Sanara is the type of person. Yeah, Sanara. Maya, Sanara. One and the same. It's the kind of person that I push myself. You know, and I am where I am because I push myself. I said, you know what? If you don't ever push yourself out there, and if you don't ever take that leap of faith, life and time will pass you by, and you'll be sitting around waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel. And there is no light at the end of the tunnel. You're the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and you believe God, right? You know that God has always given you and made even the little stretch. I was homeless before, you know, and God made the little stretch, you know. And so I said, you know what? He's going to give you someone. But sitting at home crying over spoiled, rotten milk, I'm trying not to be there. But sitting at home crying over spoiled milk is not it, you know. And people don't have any trouble treating you any kind of way. You know, I have family members that I don't even bang with like that or talk to like that. You know what I mean? So you will be all right. You will survive. And I mean, so much in this book. From the DV experience I experienced with my kid's dad, I poured my heart and soul into this book. And it is so beautiful. Like, even though I was so frustrated on that plane, like, oh no, he did. Oh yes, he did. You know, I was so proud. You know, like I just opened right here where I built my first home, almost 3,000 square foot, 5-bedroom house on a hill, and everybody laughed and said, "Are you crazy?" Listen, I gave up all of that for the hopes of having true love. And it is so in me. I am a hoping romantic. You see how I said that? A hoping romantic. And I know that reciprocation is right around the corner, you know. And I just have to find someone who aligns with those same values and who will guard my heart like they guard their own. And understand that pushing past their comfort zone, you know, will help be better and heal whatever situations, you know, that they've been dealing with. Same with me. I'm going to push past my comfort zone. And I'm going to do something different. I think I'm going to do a dating challenge. I think I'm going to do a challenge. Here, let me do my PSA. Let me do a PSA. Okay, this is a little PSA because I'm going to chop it up. I'm going to chop it and screw it. So my name is Sanara Johnson. I am 42 years old. Yeah, I've been crying a little bit because I did my YouTube video about my challenges in dating. And I think I'm going to do a dating challenge where I accept invitations via email, and we can schedule virtual dates because I know right now it's been so hard to get an in-person date. So I'm thinking I might accept virtual dates just to get a chance to wet my feet a little bit. I reckon when I got on a virtual meeting with him, it went really well. So why not take virtual meetings with other guys who may not want to go out of the comfort of their own home, kind of get to know each other, and see if we vibe. So my email will be in the description box for any guys around, I would say, the age of 36 to 48 that would like to engage and have a virtual meetup to get to know each other. Hit my email and I will schedule Zoom, Google Meets, whatever works best. I have it all, and we can get to know each other. And I think that'll be a great way to engage. And okay, this is the PSA. I'm gonna have my friends and family share. Like I said, I've been crying. I'm looking a little rough. I've been up since 2:15 this morning because I'm traveling on my little solo vacation. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I enjoy the arts, music, writing music, singing. I enjoy getting outside. I'm a little thick girl, but I do enjoy hiking, nature. I'm super ambitious, and I want someone just as ambitious because I don't want to feel like I have to water myself down or I'm tired of being in survival mode. I don't mind continuing to do it by myself because, as you can see, I've been doing quite well. And I want someone who wants to, get to know each other. It doesn't have to be serious at first, but I would love the opportunity to engage with the opposite sex. It's been 5 years since your girl has had a kiss, and feel a little. Y'all don't understand. Y'all don't understand how it feels, but yes. So I don't know. I might crap that out depending on how I feel. But I had me a little mimosa with breakfast, and I'm feeling a little froggy, so I feel like I'm a leap. But yeah, so I've been talking for 27 minutes. And as y'all can see, I can continue talking, but I wanted to just kind of, say how I felt. You guys can get my book. It's on Amazon. You can type in my name, Synara, S-Y-N as in Nancy, A-R-A Johnson. It'll pop up, or you can type in Unrequited, A Love She Couldn't Keep, and it'll pop up. It's my romance novel, loosely based off of my life, and it is really, really good. And it also has in the book, it also has a playlist and letters to the men I fell in love with. So if you were one of those men, you might want to see what I said about you. I'm just playing. But yeah, so I guess I'm gonna get off here. I really had to just get it out, and I know why, I had to get it out because of where I am and what I'm doing. But so I'm telling y'all stuff. I'll be triggering myself, Could have had a nice vacation in the spa somewhere, at the spa resort somewhere, but I gotta be triggering myself doing silly stuff. But anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Have a blessed one.